car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys, with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis Wright and host David Lamb.
Good evening and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a panel of experts ready to deal with the topics of accident and injury. And if this is something that matters to you, maybe something you're going through right now and you would like to be a part of the conversation, at the bottom of the screen all throughout the program, ways you could join our conversation. Also, don't forget something really neat that the firm of Hollis Wright makes available for each and every episode of the attorneys. Lawyers from the firm are standing by live to speak with you. Those conversations will take place off air, so no need to worry about that. But if you would like to speak with an attorney standing by live, take advantage of that opportunity right now. Leading our conversation, a partner at the firm of Hollis Wright, Tyler Vail. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you having me.
Our topic of conversation tonight, accident and injury law.
I tell you, man, that's a hot topic. I mean, it's everywhere. I think folks can't turn on their TV without seeing some type of advertisement or drive down the road without seeing some type of billboard that's dealing with personal injuries or accidents. And, you know, there's reason for it. They're so common, and they happen literally dozens and dozens every day. You know, folks unfortunately find themselves in a situation where, you know, they have been injured through no fault of their own. And, you know, in those times, getting an attorney or at least getting legal advice becomes extremely important. It's something that maybe you didn't think of yesterday, or when you left this morning, hey, I'm going to get in an accident, but all of a sudden you find yourself, you know, in one, and you're like, man, what do I do? Well, we're here to help kind of answer those questions, you know. And so we have an attorney here from Birmingham, Maridi Huggins, from the Maridi Huggins law firm. She specializes in personal injury. She's a fantastic lawyer. So when we knew we had this topic, we're like, hey, let's get Maridi on the show. She can answer all these questions. She can help folks out. And so we'll lead this discussion and just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah. Maridi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And thank you, Tyler and Hollis Wright, for having me. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you being here. It's going to be good.
Let's talk about you and give us a little background on you. How long have you been at this, and what is kind of your wheelhouse, your expertise?
Sure. Well, I finished the University of Alabama Law School in 2008, so I've been practicing since that time. I actually started doing defense work. I worked at a couple of large law firms downtown Birmingham, defending insurance companies and policyholders in car wreck cases and trucking accident cases and slip and fall, premises liability. And so I've kind of flipped the script. I've switched sides, and this past January I formed my own law firm. I decided that I wanted to really get back to helping injured people instead of you know, large companies. And so I've really returned back to kind of what I went to law school for initially, which, you know, was to help injured people.
So, yeah, that's funny. I think that's what makes her such a good lawyer. She knows both sides of it. And, you know, I think that kind of really does help develop lawyers. I know myself, I started a defense firm too for the first couple of years, and it just really opens your eyes and lets you understand cases a whole lot more, maybe exactly how the defendants are going to defend this case. And really, I think another part that you learn is how quickly the defendants begin defending cases, even before injured parties have even decided to hire a lawyer or file a lawsuit. I mean, we're talking from the time of accident when these businesses or these individuals contact, you know, an insurance company, just let them know, hey man, I was involved in an accident, there are injuries. I mean, these folks start working right away. And so having this experience is probably what's helped her, you know, be such a great lawyer.
Maridi, let me ask you, often with attorneys you hear a lot about car accident cases, a lot of commercials, a lot of talk around that. Other than car accident cases, what sort of accidents are we talking that may rise to where there may be a claim?
Well, I mean, there's a large variety of car accident cases. It's not just cars, it's motorcycles, it's bicyclists, it's trucking accidents. Premises liability claims are huge. You know, you have slip and falls that occur all over the place, from grocery stores to your local, you know, mom and pop hardware store. You also have nursing home accidents, nursing home abuse cases, you have products cases, you've got workplace accidents. So there's just a variety of situations in which a person can become injured and will ultimately need legal representation to receive compensation for those injuries.
That's true. Very good. You know, unfortunately, it just about any type of injury that can happen, we're going to see as lawyers. I mean, just when you think you've seen it all, you know, that next case comes in, that next phone call, and you're just like, oh my goodness, man, that's just unreal how folks are getting injured. And a lot of, especially like workplace injuries, maybe they weren't properly outfitted with the proper, you know, shoes, clothing, hats, fall protection, things of that nature. Nursing home, you know, injuries where folks weren't, you know, properly turned on a turn schedule like they were supposed to, or the nursing home wasn't necessarily following the doctor's orders on how to properly care, or whether there was fall prevention for these folks. So, I mean, it just goes on and on. It does run the gamut.
Right. One of the things we love to do is to get questions from you all and ways you can contact us. You see that information there on your screen. A question we've got here: if I'm involved in a motor vehicle accident, are there certain things I should do at the accident scene, first of all? So kind of a two-parter. What should I do at the scene, and what should I do after after I leave the scene of the accident?
Well, this is absolutely imperative for someone that has been involved in an auto accident to understand. Obviously, first and foremost is to report an injury. You know, report it to the investigating officer that arrives on the accident scene. Get the medical treatment that you need first and foremost. That's the most important thing.
Okay.
And then there are some other things that you can do if you are able, or if you have someone else there with you that is able, and that is things such as gathering witness information. You know, a lot of times police officers are very busy tending to different aspects of an accident scene, and they might not necessarily have the time to take down complete witness information and do a witness interview. That's something that we as attorneys appreciate, because later on we can follow up with that witness, because a lot of times witnesses have very, very valuable information. So there's just a lot of things that you can do at the accident scene. Photographs, everybody has a cell phone. You know, to preserve that accident scene, because a lot of times we're not seeing claims until, you know, several days to months later. And like you said, the other side is going to have an insurance company, and that insurance company is going to have an adjuster, an attorney that's already going to start working. And they will have already probably done a complete investigation sometimes by the time we even see a file. So there's a lot of things that you can do at the accident scene if you are able. That can help preserve some evidence that will help us out in the long run. There's also some other things that you can do after that will help, again, preserve that evidence. Get all the medical treatment that you need. That's what I always emphasize to my clients. First and foremost, medical treatment that you need. Talk to an attorney as soon as you can. Because again, that means that we can start working to preserve that evidence and help you handle your claim. So there's just, there's a lot of things that you can do that will assist your attorney in bolstering the evidence to support your claim in the long run. There's actually a toolkit on my website that I have that you can download that has all of these steps to take at the accident scene and afterwards that I think could help you know, you in handling your claim.
Yeah, that's actually a terrific point.
And what we'll do, if you'll go to the firm's Facebook page, we'll put your website right up there. So just search Hollis Wright, and they'll take you to our Facebook page, and we'll put that information, make sure that that's on our Facebook page. All right, let's step aside. Our first break of the evening. As we do so, reminder, hey, if you want to find the firm on social media and on Facebook, just search the term Hollis Wright. You'll find the firm there on Facebook. Also on Twitter, it's Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys.
Welcome back into the attorneys. Appreciate you being with us tonight. A reminder, if you throughout the course of the program have a question, you'd love to speak to someone standing by live, attorneys from the firm are available during the duration of the program to speak with you. Continuing our conversation here, whenever we went to break, one of the things we were dealing with a question that we have. Another question we've got here is kind of about some legal jargons. All right, so help us kind of understand stuff that is probably second nature to you all, but to the rest of us, what does it mean? And a question here is about what is the burden of proof? What does that term mean? And then specific to a civil injury case in Alabama. Yeah. So what is burden of proof?
Well, I mean, I'll let Maridi answer that here in a second, but that is extremely important distinction between a civil case burden of proof and a criminal case burden of proof. And I would say that civil lawyers like ourselves kind of have an uphill battle because everybody has been just pre-programmed through TV shows and everything their whole life about, you know, has to be beyond a reasonable doubt, that basically they always apply the criminal context as opposed to the civil context. So, but it is a very important distinction, and I'll let Maridi kind of explain that to everybody.
Absolutely. So, you know, on the criminal side, our justice system is divided into two parts. You've got criminal courts and you've got civil courts. In the criminal courts, it is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's that familiar, you know, everybody watches Law and Order. And, you know, that's because there's a life at stake and there's someone's liberty at stake. And so there is that very, very high threshold beyond a reasonable doubt. When you switch over to the civil side, it's the preponderance of the evidence. And so that's a more likely than not standard. So if I'm trying a case in front of a jury, I have to explain to them, in order for my client to prevail, I have to reasonably satisfy you as to the elements of my client's claim. And that is kind of a hard distinction for people to separate, because we are so used to the beyond reasonable doubt standard, but the threshold and the burden of proof is slightly lower in a civil case. So again, it's more likely than not a little bit above 50%. And you can kind of see the distinction. I think one of the most famous or infamous examples is the O.J. Simpson. You know, he was acquitted in the criminal case because the jury clearly didn't believe that, you know, he was beyond a reasonable doubt guilty. But then the victims brought a civil case and they were awarded compensation because their attorneys satisfied the preponderance of the evidence standards. So, you know, that's an example just, you know, most people can relate to, where there is that difference of burdens of proof, and so it can result in wildly different outcomes.
Very much. That's great.
A question we've got here: how do attorneys bill or charge for their time if they're representing an injured person in a lawsuit? How does that work?
I would say, and I think we've talked about this in shows in the past, that, you know, I'd say 90% or 99% of all, you know, personal injury attorneys like our firms, you know, handle cases on a contingency fee basis, meaning that, you know, when folks come in, they don't have to pay any money to meet with us. They don't have to front any expenses for, you know, the filings of the lawsuit, the depositions, or anything like that. That only if we're successful, and that's only if, you know, we are successful, then they're required to, you know, pay us back the expenses, and then usually a percentage of the award that they were given. And again, that's negotiated with the client, and also it's kind of dependent on the type of case that we have. If it's, you know, sometimes for, I'd say the most common case that we all see are car wrecks, pretty straightforward. You know, you might have to take a couple party depositions, maybe a treating doctor or two, pretty, you know, low key, not real high expenses. Those cases are generally on, you know, anywhere from 1/3 to 40%, probably is average. When you start getting into more complex cases, product liability, medical malpractice, the pharmaceutical medical device cases that we handle, you know, the fees tend to go up because we're truly having to, you know, not only travel around the country with experts located all over, we're having to get multiple experts, not only treating doctors, but, you know, causation type individuals, you know, life care planners, things of that, where the amount of money we have at stake goes way up as opposed to a car wreck, and so therefore the percentage also has to go up to compensate us. But again, no fee, you know, no expenses. You don't owe anything on the front end, which has always been a huge benefit to individuals.
Maridi?
And just to piggyback on that, I mean, that's realistically one of the first questions that I always get from clients is, how am I going to pay for this? Because, I mean, let's be honest, lawyers can be expensive, right? And not everyone has, you know, the means. I mean, most of us don't. So, you know, it allows accessibility for everyone when you operate on this contingency fee basis.
So whenever you're kind of investigating and looking into hiring an attorney, so there's contingency-based fee, and the opposite of that is that just
Hourly type paid, right? You know.
So often, like in real estate kind of deals or business
there's
kind of
transactional
matters.
type, right? If you need a contract drawn up, or you're going to start a new business or something like that, you'll usually pay either an hourly fee or a flat fee up front from the work product you're going to get.
Right.
We're kind of the opposite. You don't pay us until the end. And that's usually only if we're successful.
Right.
So we got to go out and do everything we can to win the case.
Yeah.
It just kind of, it aligns us with the clients a lot better. We're both fighting the same fight.
Right. Another question we've got, if I'm injured and want to pursue a claim, how long do I have to file the lawsuit?
And that's important.
It's very important. 2 years for most tort claims in Alabama. It's 6 years for breach of contract claims, and it varies, but 2 years is going to cover you for most of the personal injury claims that you're looking at. And
so 2 years from the accident,
2 years
I guess?
from the date of injury.
Okay.
So, you know, and I actually had someone contact me the other day, and it had fallen beyond the statute of limitations, and I had to break that news to her. I'm sorry, but you're just too late. So, you know, you have the date, if we're talking about car accidents, the date of the car accident, you've got 2 years from that date. And if you fail to bring a claim within those 2 years, you're barred. So it is, you know, it's a very strict rule. If you try to file a complaint beyond the 2 years, you'll get a motion to dismiss real quick from the other side, and your case will be thrown out. So that's why it's important, and we talked about this initially, to hire an attorney immediately and let that attorney handle your needs in a timely fashion.
No, that's exactly right. And it just kind of take it a step further. Not only is that 2 year mark, depending on the type of claim, there may be some type of notice provisions that also have to be met. And so it's true, you have 2 years from the date of injury, but say you're suing a municipality or something, you have a 6-month time period to give them notice that, hey, I might be suing you, you know, and so then you have 2 years from the date of the injury, but if you don't provide that notice, then your claim's gonna be time barred, even if you file within that 2 years. So again, get with an attorney. Let them figure out these details.
Time makes the difference, doesn't it? For
Always.
sure. Hey, time for us to step aside. This is our final break of the evening. A couple of reminders as we do so, ways you can get in touch with us here at the show and also at the firm. That information you see right there. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Carter Clay with the law firm of Hollis Wright. When someone whose unreasonable conduct causes an injury to someone else, the law says that person is negligent. So it seems the injured person should receive some type of damages, right? Not always so in Alabama. In tonight's Legal 411, we answer the question, what is contributory negligence and comparative fault? Alabama is one of only 4 states in the nation to withhold damages based on contributory negligence, meaning if you are at fault, even just a little, you cannot be allowed any damages in a case. For example, in a case where a defendant may be 99% at fault for hurting you, if you are found to be 1% at fault, Alabama law says you get nothing. 4 states, Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, and Alabama, plus the District of Columbia, are the only places in the country where a defendant can completely avoid paying if the injured person is even 1% at fault. This is very different from comparative fault, the measure used in 46 states. There are 2 versions of this system, but both essentially allow money damages based on the percentages. For example, if the injured person was 20% at fault for causing an accident, then the recovery for medical bills and wages is reduced by 20%. Numerous studies across the country show that people who live in comparative fault states believe this system of justice is more fair. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will always respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you.
Welcome back into the Attorneys. This is our final segment. Attorneys from the firm of Hollis Wright standing by live to speak with you, but only for about the next 10 minutes, so take advantage of that opportunity. Really get some good questions on our topic of conversation tonight. Question we've got here: I was recently in an accident where I was injured by someone who I believe was on their cell phone. Is this an important fact, and how do I go about proving it?
Yes. That's very important, and I'll let Maridi explain why that's becoming all too common. That's a sad thing.
Absolutely. You know, they say 25% of all automobile accidents are caused by cell phone usage, and 88% of drivers report using a cell phone during their trips.
Wow.
So, I mean, it needs no explanation that it's prevalent. We see it every single day. So it's very important for a number of reasons, and one of those is if you are a person that is on your cell phone and then causes an accident, the injured person then potentially has a claim for what's called wantonness. And with a wantonness claim carries punitive damages. And punitive damages seek to punish the offender. So punitive damages is a great way to deter people from being on their cell phone. Because if you get hit with the punitive damages, you know, and you've got to pay those, then obviously that's going to deter you from using your cell phone, right? So
Very
that's
much.
one of the reasons why it's hugely important for that punitive damages claim.
Right, and I can't tell you the number of times, a lot of times if I'm just stopped at a stoplight, like I'll just kind of look around at the cars next to you and around you, and you realize, man, everybody's on the cell phone. It's awful. And you know, talking about the punitive damages thing, another reason that's important, folks say, oh, well, I have insurance, that's no big deal. Punitive damages are not going to be covered by your insurance policy. They might pay for some negligence or the accident or property damage, but if you get hit with a punitive damage award, man, that's coming out of your pocket.
How difficult is it to prove that someone was on their phone at the time of the accident as an attorney?
You know, it's becoming easier and easier as you know, we get more digital. As attorneys, once a lawsuit's filed, we have subpoena power. So I'm sure that you've done it a number of times. I know I have. We can subpoena cell phone records, and those cell phone records are very detailed. They tell you outgoing calls. They tell you incoming calls. They tell you when text messages are received. They tell you if you're using an app, browsing your data. So there's a number of things that if you can, you know, pinpoint when the accident happened, if you were on your cell phone, you know, in and around the time of the accident, then the jury is allowed to make inferences. And they can infer that you, in fact, were on your phone at the time of the accident, and it was that distraction that caused the accident.
If you're on your phone, we're going to find out. Don't lie about it. I mean, don't try to hide it, because you can't. It's there, and we're going to get printouts, and we're going to have, like you said, you issue subpoenas. And many years ago, it was a little more difficult, as this became kind of the new discovery that we were allowed to kind of get. But nowadays, right, it's pretty simple, almost standard forms to all these major providers, and they get that information, you know, pretty easily. So,
from when you all first started with these kind of cases versus today, are cameras also much more prevalent? Are many more things caught on camera? You know, because I mean, like the Department of Transportation kind of cameras, do they come and play more now than ever?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. You know, what we have found is that we'll go to an intersection, you may see, this is just from personal experience, you may see cameras like above the stoplights or on the poles. A lot of those are not activated at all times, maybe just certain times. And private companies actually own a lot of that information and a lot of those cameras. And so you can try to go to the state, and we've issued subpoenas trying to get coverage and trying to find these, and man, it becomes a lot more difficult.
Really?
So I think as time goes on, and cameras definitely are more prevalent. Now, if we're talking about like slip and falls at a department store or something like that, that's always on camera.
But you have to, again, it goes back to hiring an attorney immediately to preserve that evidence, though, because a lot of those cameras are on a loop. And they'll be on a 48-hour, a 72-hour loop. So if you get there too late, like a dram shop action, you really need to catch the intoxicated person being visibly intoxicated. The only way you can do that is to get to that establishment and get the footage in the proper amount of time. Otherwise, it's a race forever.
Now, we have had where it's come into play, and I know folks probably see it on national news as well, is the body cameras from the police officers.
Right.
Those are being worn a lot more and being activated a lot more often than they were in the past, where now we might have recorded statements from a scene of an accident based off a body camera.
Wow, that's amazing, the times in which we are living. Hey, another question we've got here. I was recently in an accident where I was injured by a driver who did not have auto liability insurance. Do I still have an avenue to recover for my injuries?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, in Alabama, drivers are required to have liability insurance. $25,000 is the minimum, $50,000 per occurrence. So if you've got two people involved, that's $50,000 total that is potential for recovery. But if you are hit by an uninsured driver, you know, don't fret, because typically your own auto insurance policy will carry what's called underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage. That is something that is automatically included in your auto policies unless you specifically reject it. So I always recommend not rejecting that coverage, because you can't control the insurance that other people have, right?
That's right.
But you can control the insurance that you have. So if you are hit by an uninsured driver or an underinsured driver, meaning they don't have enough to properly compensate you for potentially catastrophic injuries, then you can access your own uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage to help pay for some of your medical bills and your pain and suffering and things like that.
Yeah, that insurance is so important. I can't tell you the number of cases where that exact set of facts has happened. I mean, we're dealing, we probably 50% of the cases we handle are probably dealing more with the underinsured, uninsured type coverage as opposed to the liability of the at-fault party, either because they didn't have it or they didn't have enough. I mean, anybody who's had any treatment for anything, even just a sprained ankle, and you get x-rays and a CT scan or an MRI and a few visits, I mean, you're up $15,000 in no time, you know? And so even if that person has $25,000, if over half that immediately goes to the medical care, and then if someone requires any kind of therapy or time off work, I mean, you think that that money is dissolved, you know, immediately. And so if you don't properly insure yourself with the underinsured, uninsured provisions that you have to be offered, I mean, it's definitely gonna be offered to you. You may pay a few dollars more for it, but man, it's worth it.
Yeah.
In another situation, you know, hit and run drivers. You know, if you're involved in a hit and run, the driver that does the hitting and running is considered a phantom motorist. That is an uninsured driver. So if you don't have uninsured motorist coverage under your own policy, you're going to be out of luck.
That's right.
So you really need to make sure that you keep that coverage. Like you said, you know, it may make your premium go up just a little bit, but it is worth it in the long run.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
And you know, and I know we've done some shows in the past on uninsured and underinsured. Basically, that was the entire show topic, because it does get complicated, and that's where the importance of getting to a lawyer quickly, just because, you know, you can stack policies, you can stack vehicles on certain policies up to 3. I mean, it becomes difficult. An insurance company may not say, hey, you can do all these extra things to get more money. They're going to say, yeah, that's what you got. Unless you know how to get what you need, you know, it's a big difference.
Yeah, somebody looking out for you and your rights. Believe it or not, we're just about out of time, about a minute and a half remaining. But Maridi, if you would, just a final thought from you for our viewers tonight.
I would think that, you know, the big takeaways are, you know, be mindful of preserving evidence as quickly as possible. Be mindful that it's important to hire an attorney as quickly as possible so that preservation of evidence can continue. Keep in mind you have 2 years for most personal injury claims. So really, you know, if you feel like you're injured and it wasn't your fault, please reach out to an attorney as soon as possible so that attorney can start working on your claim for you, because like we said at the very beginning, the other side, they've already started working.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And you know, whenever you're dealing with personal injuries, it's a very personal matter. We understand that. And we understand that we're getting folks that are kind of at their lowest level, maybe in their lives. You know, I mean, they're no longer allowed to provide for their families. They're no longer, you know, they can't work. Maybe they've had some catastrophic injury where they're going to be taken care of, you know, their entire lives. I mean, it's a big deal. So you don't just want to hire the first attorney you see. You want to talk to folks. You want to find somebody who cares, a compassionate lawyer. I know Maridi's terrific at what she does. I know our firm. There's lots of great firms out there. Let's just make a good selection.
Absolutely. Thanks both of you for being with us tonight. Excellent discussion, and thank you as always for being with us. We appreciate it so much. We're wrapping things up, but as we do so, how you can get in touch with the firm of Hollis Wright. Would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for the time. We'll see you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.